Hello, friends. Alex Kirshner here to pick Week 16 / championship weekend / whatever you want to call it of this college football season. The weirdest, most bizarre college football season in memory, and that is saying something. We'll get right into it this week. Mostly conference championship games of note, but a lot more games just in terms of the sheer number of games on the schedule that are not even conference championship games. I'm going to pick mostly championship games because I think that the non-championship games could be subject to a lot of weirdness, like guys not playing, teams that have kind of given up, coaches that may not even be there. We'll see. I want to start with the game that'll probably have the most eyeballs on it nationally this week because this is every year the biggest televised conference championship game. That's the SEC championship between Florida and Alabama in Atlanta. I have two picks here for you. One, Alabama -17, roll tide on the spread. And two, the under at the massive total, if you could believe it, of 75.5 points in this game. Putting two picks together kind of because I think they play off each other well, but I'll talk first about the spread pick. Alabama has been blowing teams out for the last 7 weeks in really epic fashion, particularly the last 6. I think that the odds makers have had a hard time catching up to just how good Alabama has been. Bama started this year 1-2 against the spread. They have won their last 7 against the spread, and they are covering these spreads by really hilarious margins. They are covering, despite the fact that they are favored by 20 plus points in every game nowadays, they are covering those spreads on top of that by 13.5 points per game. And just showing no signs whatsoever of slowing down. Obviously, that could end at any time. This is a funny sport. Weird things happen. But I don't think it's going to end this week because I have watched Alabama. I have watched Florida. Even though I don't think Florida is as much of a mess as it looked in losing to LSU and throwing shoes against LSU in the swamp last weekend, I don't think that Florida's defense can keep pace. And I think that Alabama's defense, even more importantly, for my next pick, the under 75.5, has really, really gotten into gear. I think that people might look at Alabama, odds makers might still be kind of looking at Alabama's early season results where they had a game where, you give up 48 to Ole Miss and you're not lined up right. You look defensively out of sorts all night and you get into a shootout. But since then, Alabama has given up, and I have the numbers right in front of me while I'm recording this video: 24, 17, 0, 3, 13, 17, 3 points in the last 6 games. Florida's offense is good, but I do not think they're having a big night in this game. I don't even think they're scoring 28, and it could be a lot lower than that. And with that total being so high, I mean, that's got to be one of the highest totals in the history of conference championship games, if not the highest. I just don't think that we are getting a game with 76 points. And that's, even with all the respect I have for Alabama's offense, I just don't see it. I don't think Florida's going to drop 35. I think that Alabama, could wind up somewhere in the 50s. And even if they do, I think their defense is going to be good enough that there's a decent chance that this game does not hit. I think more likely Bama settles somewhere in the 40s. And I do not think that if that happens, Florida can get that 30-something number that it would need to create an over in this game. So I like the Tide. I like the under, and I think the two picks play off each other because if this game does somehow have 76 points and break that total at 75.5, that means Alabama is getting a lot of those points. Because, again, how much do you really think Florida is going to score against the Bama defense that has been basically impenetrable since halftime of a Georgia game that was over 2 months ago by the time this one kicks off? Speaking of lots and lots of offense, the conference that used to be known for that, but maybe a little bit less so right now, the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma against Iowa State. I am taking the under in this game at 58.5. Two pretty slow-paced offenses. I don't mean slow offenses. I mean slow-paced. They take a lot of time between plays. They do not run tempo. Oklahoma got into a shootout the last time these teams played, and it did not go well for them. They lost like 37-30 in Ames against Iowa State. Iowa State's defense has improved a lot since then. They had a couple rough goes early in the year, but in general have been really, really stout. I think Oklahoma might play a little more conservatively than they did in that last game because Spencer Rattler kind of played with fire throughout that night and then threw a really crippling pick on Oklahoma's kind of last gasp drive that cemented that upset for Iowa State. But the thing that actually really makes this under attractive to me is that we look at Oklahoma and we say, well, Oklahoma's defense, they give up a ton of points. No, I mean that's not how it's been for the back half of the season. Oklahoma was struggling a lot. They lost to Kansas State and Iowa State by playing bad defense and Rattler throwing some picks. But since then, they've played 5 games, and they have given up 14 or less 5 times, and they have never given up more than 28 in that spell. OU's offense remains great, of course, but it is not quite what it was the last couple of years, unless they've been playing, Texas Tech, Kansas in the back half of the year. They haven't been running up these wild numbers. They've been, somewhere in the 20s to 40s. The under has been pretty competitive in Oklahoma games this year. I think the over is 5-4, and the under is above 500 in Iowa State games. I feel good about it, despite all of the talent that's going to be on the field in that game. In the American, I'm taking the Cincinnati Bearcats minus 14 at home against Tulsa. I am concerned about Tulsa's ability to score points in this game, like at all. I'm very, very highly concerned about it. I think Cincy's defense is going to overwhelm that offense. One of the things that I think is special about Tulsa is that they don't have like an ultra efficient offense that does things well throughout the game and that just, is fundamentally awesome and hard to stop. They've kind of just pulled things out of their backside throughout the season, and particularly just pulled big plays at moments when they've really, really needed them. The one that I think will come to most people's minds was a Hail Mary against Tulane at the buzzer in that game that allowed them to get to overtime and win. But they also just kind of pulled some magic acts late, with some big plays that seemed to come from nowhere against teams like UCF and SMU, who they had huge comeback wins against. I do not think that Cincinnati's secondary is going to allow that. I think this is, other than maybe Alabama, the best secondary in all of college football right now. Cincinnati also has a lot to play for, because if they win this game, and Coastal Carolina wins the Sun Belt Championship, then there's kind of a conversation. And I think Cincinnati would probably come out on top. But depending on how the teams look, there's a conversation about who gets that automatic bid to a New Year's Six Bowl, or if maybe both of them somehow sneak into the top 12. Luke Fickell was on that 2014 Ohio State staff, where Ohio State was out of the playoff field and then, absolutely put it on Wisconsin in a very memorable blowout. And did enough to leapfrog into the field. I think Luke understands the importance of style points, and I do not think Cincinnati shows a lot of mercy in this game. I like them minus 14 in their own house. In Conference USA's championship game this week, UAB and Marshall. I'm doing something that I don't usually do here, and I'm taking a really, really low total and agreeing with it and betting the under 42 for me in this game. I think it's going to be grueling to watch. If you have any interest in seeing points scored, this is not going to be the game for you. These are two teams that run at a very low tempo. They milk the play clock. They don't run a lot of plays. Kind of slows the game down, but obviously speeds the clock up, because the clock just keeps moving, after every run back into the line, and they don't get first downs too quickly. So you get a lot of plays where a lot of time rolls off between the snaps. Marshall's defense in particular, I think, is a real asset for the under in this game. They are the best in the country at preventing explosive plays. If you think about this, just 5% of Marshall's snaps against on defense result in either a 12-yard run or a 16-yard pass, if we define those as explosive plays. Think about that a little further. They're only playing about 61 defensive snaps a game. That's the average Marshall game, because they are a pretty slow-paced team all around. That means 3 plays a game really are a 12-plus yard run or a 16-plus yard pass. So you're just not getting a lot of chunks against this defense pretty much no matter what you do. You factor in that UAB has barely played football lately. They have played once since Halloween, and that was a 21-16 win against Rice last week, where, obviously if that were the outcome again, the under would be very successful. I just think this is going to be a slog. It could be 17-10, could be 24-7, and that would be fine with us. I do not bet unders this low, but I just feel like these teams, if there was any matchup that could get us there, it would be this one. And I want to wrap with a game that isn't a conference championship game, but is a championship game of a different kind, and one that both teams care about just as much as anybody cares about a conference championship game. Army and Air Force playing at West Point for the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy. I'm taking Army plus 2.5. Remember that the CIC, the Commander-in-Chiefs, is a big deal. I think a lot of people focus on Army-Navy, and it is, I think, the biggest leg of that three-way rivalry that we have between the service academies in major college football. But the team that has the best record in games among the service academies gets the CIC. Air Force would love to have it. Army has a chance, because both of these teams crushed Navy. It is on the line in this game. I think that takes, some potential weirdness out of this, because I think everyone will be playing, even though it is late in the season. Everyone who's medically cleared to be playing will be playing. You're not seeing things like opt-outs before this game. And I just don't really see why Army is getting points in this game after a 15-0 blanking of Navy just last week. Army's run defense is suffocating, one of the best run defenses in the country, and obviously has a lot of experience stopping the triple option. They face it in practice all the time. They faced it with Navy last week and could not possibly have done better than they did against the midshipmen. I get a little pause because Air Force has something Navy didn't, and that is a complementary passing game to go with all those dives and those speed options that these triple option service academies love to run. That's something that the best triple option teams have and the worst don't. The ability to kind of lull defenses to sleep with your run game and then throw it over their heads a few times a game. Air Force can do that, and I'm lying if I say I'm not a little bit concerned about that. But we are still talking about Army and Air Force, and we are talking about a game at West Point. I think it comes down to who runs the ball better, who takes better angles, and who stops the run. It's a very old-style football game in that way, and I think the best program right now in that department is the Army Black Knights. I like them getting points. I would take them even if it was a pick 'em, and I wasn't getting 2.5. So keep an eye on that line, and if you see Army plus anything, I'd be pretty interested there, or maybe on the money line if you're the kind of bettor who likes to take a little bit bigger swing. So go Army for me in this game, in this Commander-in-Chief's Trophy game. Let's all make some money this weekend. Thank you for watching this video and all season, and we'll see you in the postseason.